Dear children, in this module, we are going to learn about the steps of respiration. The first step in respiration, what is it? It's nothing but breathing. That is, taking in of oxygen and release of carbon dioxide. And this process is called as breathing, or it is called as pulmonary ventilation. Now let us consider the breathing in of oxygen-rich air from the atmosphere. And this oxygen-rich air through the conducting part reaches the alveoli. And the alveoli is the exchange part where exchange of gases has to take place. So the second step is gas exchange between lung alveoli and the blood. We have learned that the alveoli is vascularized, or it is richly supplied with blood capillaries. And all these capillaries join together to form the pulmonary vein. And this pulmonary vein takes the blood from the lungs to the heart. That is the left atrium that we had studied in chapter Body Fluids and Circulation. And from the heart, it reaches to all parts of the body. And that is a third step, that is gas transport. And now we are considering the transport of oxygen to all parts of the body. And this oxygen reaches the tissues. And next exchange takes place between the tissues and the blood. And the blood, which is containing the oxygen diffuses or moves into the tissues and via into the cells, where cellular respiration or tissue respiration takes place. That is breakdown of the nutrients, that is glucose, to release energy. And the byproduct is carbon dioxide. And this carbon dioxide moves out, that is exchange takes place between the tissue and the blood. And next, the carbon dioxide rich blood is transported back to the heart, that is the right part of the heart. And from the right part of the heart, the pulmonary artery carries the impure blood, that is carbon dioxide rich blood, from the heart to the lungs, where it is exchanged between the alveoli and the blood. And the last step is the pulmonary ventilation, that is exhalation of the carbon dioxide rich air into the atmosphere. So these are the steps of respiration. Next, we learn about the mechanism of breathing. The mechanism of breathing involves two steps, that is inspiration and expiration. What is inspiration? Intake, active intake of air from the atmosphere into the lungs, that is oxygen-rich air from the atmosphere is actively taken into the lungs, and this is called as inspiration. And the second step is expiration, passive expelling of air from the lungs. So inspiration is active, whereas expiration is passive. So passive expelling or removing of the air from the lungs back into the atmosphere, that is carbon dioxide rich air, is passively removed from the lungs to the atmosphere, is called as expiration. Let us learn in detail about inspiration. The first step in inspiration is the diaphragm contracts. We learned what is diaphragm. It is a muscular partition between the thorax and the abdomen. And the bottom part of the thoracic chamber is guarded by, or it is formed by, the diaphragm. So the diaphragm contracts. We know it is a muscular flap. So it undergoes contraction and relaxation. So initially it contracts. And as a result, it flattens. That is the dome-shaped diaphragm comes down. So it flattens. And as a result, the thoracic chamber increases in the vertical volume, that is in the anterior posterior axis. Due to the flattening of the diaphragm, the thoracic chamber increases its volume in the vertical volume, or in the anterior posterior. This is the anterior part and this is the posterior part. In the anterior posterior axis, the volume of the thoracic chamber increases. And there is another role of another set of muscles. And what are these muscles called as? These are called as the external intercostal muscles. Where are these present? These are present in between the ribs, which cover the thoracic chamber laterally. We would have experienced when we are breathing, there is an change in the position of our chest. It moves up and goes down. Why is it moving up? It is big. Or when is it moving up? When we are inhaling or when inspiration is taking place. So when inspiration is taking place, the first step is contraction of the diaphragm. And second is the contraction of the intercostal muscles, external intercostal muscles which is present between the ribs. And as the result, the ribs and the sternum, ribs cover or it forms the lateral part of the thoracic chamber and sternum forms the ventral part of the thoracic chamber. So the ribs and the sternum lift up. It comes up. And as a result, the volume of the thoracic chamber increases in the dorsal and ventral axis, that is in the backward and forward direction. On the back to front direction or the axis, the thoracic chamber increases its volume due to the contraction of the external intercostal muscles which is present in between the ribs, which causes the ribs and the sternum to lift up. And what happens due to the flattening of the diaphragm and the lifting up of the ribs and the sternum, the thoracic chamber increases in volume in the anterior, posterior and in the dorsoventral axis. As a result, the thoracic chamber increases. The thoracic volume increases. When there is an increase in volume, what will happen? The pressure decreases. Increase in the thoracic volume decreases the thoracic pressure. So the lungs expand and the pulmonary volume increases. And automatically what decreases? The pressure inside the lungs, that is intrapulmonary pressure, decreases. We know that air moves from a region of higher pressure to lower pressure. So where is the pressure high at present? It is in the atmosphere. So from the air which is having high atmospheric pressure, it moves to a region of low pressure which is inside the pulmonary compartments or inside the lungs. So air moves from outside into the lungs and thus inhalation or inspiration takes place. Dear children, in this module we learned about the steps involved in respiration. We also learned about the first step in the mechanism of breathing, that is inspiration.